Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted to feel more limber in life, whether on or off the mat, then do we have the 365 Daily Meditations show for you. Today I'll be talking with Scott Ginsberg, a long-lost brother, though he doesn't know it yet, and the author of over 35 books, 8 musicals, 5 software apps, 3 musical films, and a phenomenal daily read, 365 Daily Meditations. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about daily meditations to relax the mind, stretch the body, and get you into your Om. That, plus we'll talk about mat and towel straightening skills, CNN and the name tag wearer, hinging torsos and grilled cheese sandwiches, forgetting frozen water bottles, fast heart, slow lungs, and why in the world you want to hover over the mat like you're peeing at the Port Authority. So welcome to the show, Scott. Are you ready to shine?
Yes, I am.
Woohoo! Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I've got to go back in time, and you may have been asked this one time too many. My apologies if you have. But what is the one question that you've asked everybody since you were 5?
What could I do in this moment that would be the exact opposite of everybody else?
And are you still living this creed?
Yeah, I think it's pretty rote in my mind now. I don't even actually ask the question. It just happens. I can't help but individuate myself in a rebellious way. It's just part of my personality.
What happened in your childhood?
Well, everyone I knew wanted me to do one thing, and I just couldn't help but want to be my own guy. So I'm sure some horrible traumatic thing happened before my memory can reach back. And I don't know, I'll go talk to my parents and find out for you.
So, who are very, very cool and loving supporters, I might say, and beyond, if I understand.
Oh, I mean, I could have diarrhea in Times Square. My parents would still be proud of me.
Very cool. So this doesn't qualify as the diarrhea in Times Square, but what did happen to you Tuesday, November 2nd, 2000 at 9:51 p.m.?
Yeah, so this was when I decided to start wearing a name tag 24/7, and this was 6,235 days ago. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of this goofy college experiment idea thing that a lot of us do when we go to college. And I thought maybe I could make some friends. I was feeling pretty lonely at the time when I was in school, and wearing a name tag really worked, and people all of a sudden were nicer to me. So I felt seen in a way that I hadn't been seen before, and it was really beautiful. So I decided, with no intention of making a career out of it, I just decided to wear a name tag forever, indefinitely.
So, and you told this to your parents at your graduation, and they said,
"Cool,
impressive." So you hired yourself out of college, and you got to work. What did you get to work on?
Well, I've always been a writer, and been writing since I was very, very young. And when I was in my senior year, I started writing a book about the name tag adventure because it's pretty interesting, and writing comes easy to me. So it was an obvious next step for me to take. And then I published it when I graduated.
So, and you, how'd the book do first off?
Oh, terrible. Nobody bought it. I gave 3,200 copies away to every single person I knew.
Okay, let me pause you, because we did really well with the book, but as part of our contract, we have about 5,000 books sitting in our garage. How do you give away 3,000 books? We need to know the secret.
You just give them to people. You don't give them a choice. And most people aren't going to read them. They're not even going to open them. I've seen my books at book fairs and discount tables for quarters and 50 cents. Like, I don't care. Like, I just gave them to everybody because I was just proud of it, and it's a piece of my art. So it is officially the least selling book I've ever written, but it also started my career and launched my brand. So who cares?
So let's go from there, because I'm fascinated. We're going to dive into your book, but I'm fascinated on your journey and how you became successful and how the pieces or the dominoes came into place. First off, what does it mean to make a name for yourself? Because you have done this more than anybody else.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a really great phrase that has evolved a lot for me over the years. You know, initially it was about feeling like a grown-up and being an adult and being a professional. And that's when I was, 20, 21, 22 years old. And I think as I started to progress in my career, it was about creating value, contributing, be a business person, all that sort of entrepreneurial stuff. And now, as I'm progressing in my career, getting older, and I'm married, and I have this amazing community here in my life, now I'm making a name for myself. It's not just about me. It's about the people that I care about and the community that we're building, and, also helping other people make a name for themselves. And I think that's a really key distinction, because I've flushed so much of the ego out of my system, having already accomplished so many great things at a young age. I'm really grateful for that. So now I'm like, okay, I'm good. How much applause do I really need? What can I do to be a stand for other people and to, lift them up and to reflect their greatness back to them? That is exciting and satisfying in a new way. And what I believe is this evolving definition of making a name for yourself.
Beautiful. How has that mind shift occurred, if you don't mind me asking, or
Yeah.
how do you remember to put that in place and in practice on a daily basis?
I don't know. I think it's one of those things that it's not a tactic and it's not a strategy and it's not a 7-step article that I can give to people. I'm just tired of myself, and it's more fun to help others do it.
I like it. I like it very much. So if we go back, you moved to Portland. You were looking for a nice place where you fit in, so to speak, Portlandia. And somebody said something, which did something, which turned into, in a way, somebody doing something very nice for you.
Certainly. I mean, I've met strangers that have been like transformative in my career, and people, you give your business card to one person, they pass it to another person, and then, before you know it, you're on the cover of the local newspaper, and stuff like that does happen, and it is exciting. And yeah, I think after you meet a lot of these people that do these great things for you, it's like, well, man, who can I be that person for, and flip it a little bit, and feel a different type of satisfaction.
So how did you end up on USA Today?
Well, USA Today was like fourth in the line of this going viral, which happened back in 2002. Viral before viral was viral. Now it's like everything goes viral every single day, and everyone's got a strategy, and everyone's got, a boutique marketing agency that's going to help them go viral. I didn't do any of that. It just happened because I met a stranger on the bus who passed along my business card. And yeah, it was interesting. It was very strange and very overwhelming because I was not prepared for it. And I got taken on a ride before I was ready to go on one, and just started this thing called a career.
I like that you say you got taken on a ride before you were ready for it. What did that mean, and how did you hang on?
I didn't hang on. I fell off. It was crazy, and specifically for about the first 6 months of going viral, and all of that entails in terms of interviews, email outreach, et cetera. There was no social media, so it's probably better because I would have been drowning in hate tweets. But at the time, it was just a sort of craziness of trying to keep up with it. And because I was not properly prepared to leverage it from a business standpoint, that's the falling off, and that is the drowning in this craziness. So it took a couple years for me to recalibrate and figure out, a business model. What a great idea. I should get one of those. Oh, a revenue generating product. That's brilliant. Let's go get one of those.
I can think back just not too long ago. My wife and I are on Maui. She's getting very sick. We had several successful books. We had a very successful career. We were in one of these down periods, these troughs where the income's not coming in. We're scared out of our minds. We're not sure where we're going. And we had a real hard time stepping back and looking big picture. How are you able to do that? Or did it take you that full 2 years before you were able to step back enough to say, how do we build this?
Yeah, it took a while. I would love to think that there was a moment of clarity in which I discovered how to strategize, but it didn't work that way. It was this very slow trajectory that involved working at a furniture store, and then working nights and weekends, parking cars at a hotel, and living with my parents, which was awesome, and rent free, and doing tons of stuff for a long time before it was properly sustainable. And then it was for a long time, and then I got burned out and quit. So it's really interesting how that trajectory works.
And when did your spiritual path start?
I don't know. I think that it's always been there. I've been a musician since I was a very young person. I think music was like my first connection to, oh, wow, this is intense. There's something really magical here. So that goes back way, way, way longer than any sticker could. So who knows? I was probably on some kind of path before I realized it.
So let's go from there. And just before we dive into this book, can you tell us what happened, what health scare you had at 26?
Yeah, I had a collapsed lung when I was 26, which is actually very common if you are tall and lanky and between 26 and 29 years old. That's the risk profile. Yeah, it's so if you're like a boxer or a football player, or you get into a car accident, collapsed lungs are actually pretty common. But I didn't have a blunt force trauma. I was just in the risk area. So I also was a workaholic and had significant stress management problems. So that was not something my doctor said was part of it, but I chose to believe that story while sitting in a hospital bed with a tube breathing through my chest, doped up on morphine for a week. And once I made it through that experience, I thought, well, something's not working here. And especially because it was a respiratory issue, I had to get a better relationship with my breath and with breathing and with my calmness, which eventually led me down to the yoga path.
So, and what was it like day one in the yoga studio for you?
Well, I do hot yoga, so the day one was insanely hot and insanely sweaty, and I sweat more than any human being alive. So I was actually both shameful and proud of my massive sweat angel around my towel and mat. And I remember I did it. It was I think it was a 5 o'clock class, PM. And my family was meeting for dinner at like 6:30. So I got to dinner a little bit late, 6:45, 7 o'clock. And I sat down. I'm like, oh, somebody give me some water. I can't move. And my whole body was sore and I was so exhausted. And my mother, who's a personal trainer and also a Pilates instructor, she's like, wow, like, so how was it? I'm like, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I can't wait to go back tomorrow.
Wow. So I want to dive into that. However, I got to go down this direction. Have you ever taken Mom's Pilates classes?
She's helped me with some Pilates poses, but I've not done a proper class. No, I'm afraid. I don't think I can keep up with her. She's too strong.
So very cool. Go Mom.
Yeah, I know.
So you're a big believer in rituals, I believe. No, you've had a ritual for over 6,000 days here.
Yeah.
Was it as easy as flipping a switch and saying, that's it, I'm going to yoga on a regular basis?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is for me and my personality. And I think a lot of people struggle with that type of binary nature when it comes to habits. But I'm a very ritualized, habitual, systematic person. And especially when I find something that I like, forget about it. Because I'm the kind of person, as you can tell from wearing a name tag for 18 years, I find something that I like that works for me, that's meaningful, I'm going to stick with it. So when I found yoga, I thought, oh yeah, this is awesome. And that was the first day. It took some time to build up my stamina in terms of frequency and, improving in my postures and everything. But yeah, it was love at first sweat.
Very good.
I just made that up. That's really good. I'm trademarking that.
All right. It's yours. It's going out to the world, but they'll all know it's yours. Scott Ginsberg.
Yeah.
Do you want to say that for us one more time?
Love at first sweat.
Woohoo! All right. What is to you the importance of rituals?
Well, I mean, there's so many benefits to it. I mean, I think for one thing, just if you're a control freak like me, and not a control freak that you need to control other people, but someone who needs to be in control of themselves. And I understand control is an illusion. Like I get all that, but yeah, I think that we can take measures that what we can do to feel in control of the moment and of our situations. And ritual helps me do that. For example, when I was giving speeches as a profession and traveling around the world doing however many talks every week or every month, I had a ritual before each presentation where I'd listen to some music and do some breathing exercises. And that allowed me to honor this great privilege that I had to share in front of, thousands and thousands of people, and also to get in the zone. I listen to Eminem and I listen to the Rocky IV soundtrack, and it just like pumps me up and gets me going before I'm about to do a performance. So, I think ritual has a lot of benefits. And for me, it's very synchronous with my personality. Some people hate it. Some people want nothing to do with ritual, and I totally understand that. And I'm not here to teach them how to do it either.
It's Rocky IV against the Russian?
Oh yeah, that's Drago.
And that's really, that's the one that's the inner battle is what it's all about.
Well, as the song by Survivor goes, it's a battle between you and you. It's East versus West. Nope, it's you versus you. You can hear it on Spotify.
So, oh God, there's so many directions we can go with that. We'll drag it back from Rocky, but we'll go to habits and making them historic, because like Rocky, going out to Russia, training in Siberia wood thing, like a cross that he's carrying along.
Yeah.
You make your habits historic. Why is that important?
I know exactly what you're talking about because I remember writing that, but I have no reference. I totally forget what that means. I wrote it a long time ago, so you tell me.
Well, to me, I think making our habits historic means not selling ourselves short. Not saying, well, I'm not sure if I can do that, so I don't really want to go for it. But saying, no, I can do a hot yoga class, and I can even do a morning class to set my stage for the day.
Sure. Yeah, I think the word historic is appropriate because habits have a huge influence on us. And early yoga is a great example. I mean, I don't love taking that early class, but if I have an interview in the morning or if I have something to do or it's the only schedule I can get to, and my wife and I are like, all right, we got to go to that 6 a.m. class so we can get to the thing by 8. Like, all right, well, here we go. And it's brutal to get there. As we say, the first posture is getting to the studio. But once you're done, you feel awesome, and you've created this event while most people are still sleeping, and the rest of the day feels pretty easy compared to that.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, while you have these habits that, like you said, the first posture is getting yourself there, you're really, a lot of this book, and this book is 365 pages of tips based on your experience with hot yoga, lessons for life, body, mind, and soul. A lot of them are around this particular topic in one way or the other. Kindness, the importance of not rushing yourself, and building space.
Yeah, and specifically kindness to ourselves. Just because my personality is also to beat myself up when I make mistakes or I fall short, or it's not about perfectionism because I'm not that person. I'm whatever the opposite of perfectionist. That's me. But in terms of being kind to yourself, like, oh, you know what? I just dropped a bead of sweat and it went onto the person's mat next to me. Like, okay, that's gross and that's kind of funny, but don't spend the next 86 minutes rehearsing your apology to the woman that you're going to see in the hallway after yoga. That's the kind of stuff that I used to do. So, like, be kind to yourself. Or if if I fall out of a posture, or if I slip on the towel or something like that, it's funny. Laugh it off. It's okay. Don't, it's like, oh, idiot. You turn into like Chris Farley interviewing Paul McCartney on the Chris Farley show. Like, oh, stupid. You don't need to do that. And I certainly had a tendency to do that inside my head, and I'm getting better at it, although I still do it. So I think that's where the kindness piece comes in.
That's good, or else you'd be living in a van down by the river.
Eating a steady diet of government cheese.
Amen to that. Yeah. So what does self-love have to do with it?
Well, that's what the kindness is, and it comes out in a lot of really interesting ways. So let's look at body image, for example, because hot yoga specifically, you wear as little clothing as possible for the purposes of doing the posture. It's not because you look good or you're trying to like show off, although some people do that. But yeah, like I'm wearing, a pair of shorts, and that's it. So I'm confronted in the mirror, which is 7 inches in front of me, with parts of myself that I'm not proud of, or parts of myself that I have shame around, or parts of myself that people used to make fun of me. Like, oh, like I have a really broad chest, and I'm like, oh, I'm embarrassed about that. Or, oh, I got my fat rolls on my spare tire area. Oh, yeah. Or look at my big, pale, white, hairy legs. I mean, I have to sit there for 90 minutes and stare at that. And it's like, look, can I love that about myself? Can I accept that about myself? It's really hard, but I tell you what, after a couple thousand classes of just like staring at yourself right there and realizing that, oh yeah, there's 38 other people in here that are probably having the same conversation in their head about their own thing. No one's even looking at me. That's like the irony, is that people are too busy like hating themselves and worrying about themselves and beating themselves up. They're not even paying attention to me. And I think that's where we get caught up. It's like, oh, I got to, put on this performance because people are noticing. No, they're not. No one's looking.
Is there an inner dialogue that you started? Was there an instructor? Was there something that started to switch that flip for you?
Yeah, I'm not sure it was one particular moment, but I think it's just the advantage of practice. And this book is about practicing. I have no intention to like convert the world to doing yoga. I don't think everybody should do yoga. I've gotten questions before like, well, I don't really like yoga. What do you think I should do? Do something else. I don't care. This book is entitled A Year in Hot Yoga because that's the organizing principle of this particular project. It's not about yoga. It's about practice. And it doesn't even have to be practiced every day. All of us should feel allowed to have the freedom to create our own practice, whatever that means. So for each person, what does that look like for you? And how can you return to something regularly enough where you can find something new each time? That's what will ultimately make this transformation, not something clever that a teacher said during final savasana.
How would you define practice then?
Well, I mentioned it just a minute ago, but I'll restate it. So practicing is doing anything regularly in a way where you can return to the same place each time and get something new out of it.
Beautiful. And that goes into this whole concept. Well, is it about improvement? Is it about self-care? Why practice?
Well, it depends. I mean, some people really like to improve and to grow and to excel. I'm kind of over that. And I think that's just my recovery of workaholism speaking there, that I just did that for so long. I got to grow and be better and improve, and I'm going to game my yoga. Like, I don't care. Like, I just like practicing. I just did yoga a couple hours ago. It felt great. And my teacher was trying to give me a correction. I'm like, I don't care. Some days I'm not really interested in like getting better and being great. Some days I'm like, man, I haven't done anything today. Like, I'm going to have a good yoga class. But again, that's an expectation that sometimes it always doesn't work out. So practice it's just for the sake of doing it because you like it, or because it brings you joy, or because you're surrounded by other people that you're connected with. I mean, there's so many reasons to practice, and I don't have the right one for people, but I think practice as itself is a thing, is important, and people can find something about it that's useful for them.
Beautiful. So let's go with the opposite of taking on the world, of conquering, of all of these yang kind of things. And let's bring it back full circle to your 26-year-old self, the importance of breathing and the breath. Yeah.
Well, when a tube is breathing for you for a week, it helps you realize that this is a vulnerable position, and your breath, that ain't no joke. And that's what yoga is about. It's the breath. And, you have breathing exercises in class specifically. We do our pranayama breathing, but we also breathe throughout the whole thing. And so breath is the pause. Breath is the connection with self. Breath is when we shut up for a minute. Breath is the space between. And as a musician, I know the importance of this because, the old saying is it's the space between the notes, not the notes, that makes them impactful. So if I'm, playing the bridge of a song and I'm going from, a minor chord to a seventh or a ninth, the breath between the minor and the seventh is really important, because it's going to punctuate that seventh, which I know resolves into, a minor, et cetera, et cetera. So, the breath from on a very technical side in music helps explain the story. And I think the same thing happens in any yoga class.
And probably in any interview as well.
Certainly.
Beautiful. So do you have practices or ways that you concentrate on the breath when you're not on the mat?
Yeah. So meditation has been a huge influence on my life for a long time now. And there's a lot of them that have been really useful, but I'll share a couple that have sort of stayed the course. The first one is a very simple meditation program by a guy named Eric Maisel, who is a psychologist and a creativity coach. And his program is called 10 Zen Seconds. And it's a 10-second breath with a pause in the middle. So I can demonstrate it really quick. So you inhale for 5, pause, and then exhale for 5. So it'll be like this.
Hold.
And the way that his program is set up is to thread language through the breath and to have a series, what's called the centering sequence of incantations. And you customize them specific to what's important to you. So I can share a couple examples. So every day, a couple times a day, usually right before I write, right before I do yoga, right after I do yoga, I do a series of meditations. And one of them, for example, is I am equal to this challenge. Mm-hmm. So here, I'll say it. You do inhale 5, pause, and exhale 5.
Okay.
Go. I am equal, pause, exhale, to this challenge. So you would breathe and say that to yourself, and then there's a whole other sequence of sentences that I've kind of internalized. But it's a really amazing program. If you can't meditate for 10 seconds, you have problems. So that's one that's been huge. And then in addition to that, I did hypnosis with my therapist for a long time, and it was became a self-hypnosis because it was a recorded program, but it was incredibly useful in terms of mindfulness, relaxation. Self-hypnosis is definitely the most long-term impactful breathing exercise that I did.
Beautiful. Would you mind sharing a few other of your mantras that you repeat to yourself?
Yeah, sure. And I'll give credit to Eric Maisel because a lot of these came from his book. So in order, the mantras are, I am completely stopping. I am equal to this challenge. Mm-hmm. I embrace this moment. I expect nothing. I trust my resources. I am ready to make meaning.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What is it? You say you burned out. Do you mind me asking both what that meant to you and how you've shifted since then?
Well, it certainly meant stress-related illnesses. That was the symptom. And the larger problem was like, you know what? Maybe it's okay to not work 7 days a week, 14 hours a day. Maybe I need to take a break or go on a vacation, like an actual vacation, not like I go to another city and then just write all the time. Like it's not a vacation. So it's figuring out how to slow down and how to have a schedule that's sustainable. But it also meant figuring out what I was running away from, because workaholism, or any addiction for that matter, it's emotional regulation through an external source. So I was trying to regulate my emotions by working all the time, because if I'm working all the time, I don't have to think about the fact that I'm lonely, as one example. So I tried to figure out, well, I'm lonely, so what's that about? And that led to, figuring out how to build community, figuring out how to have a sense of belonging inside of me where I could belong anywhere, how to belong to myself, how to be in a relationship with another person where I felt connected and belonged, and which I wasn't at the time. So all these components of belonging and loneliness was what was underneath. That's the hole I was trying to fill with workaholism. And I finally became aware of that. So that started this path of being a lot more intentional about the way that I connect and the way that I build community, and then the way that I rest.
How did you shift? How did you begin to shift on the inside, and how did you get to be, was it the yoga practice that helped you to be really kind and gentle? And maybe you weren't even at first, but this is you had a record that's playing and you had to just drag the needle right across it.
Yeah, yoga was such a big help, and yoga was a spoke on a wheel of relaxation, mindfulness, etc. Meditation was another spoke, and etc. Therapy, etc. So yoga was this really crucial spoke, and it was different because it was so bodily based. Mm-hmm. Just as a writer and as a thinker, I just get so trapped in my head that to do yoga and to really connect with my body and feel my body in ways I never felt before, and find muscles. Oh, I didn't know that was even a muscle. What is this low back weird thing? Wow, I can control that. That's cool. And getting this body awareness that didn't exist before, it just got me the hell out of my head. That's another thing our yoga studios say, is that your mind is a bad neighborhood. Stay out of it. Mm-hmm. And that's what yoga does. It gets you in touch with your body, and in for better or for worse. You see things that you don't like, and you get hurt, and you sweat everywhere, and you're kind of grossed out by it. But that's reality, and that's science. That's our body. It's reality on reality's terms, and you start to accept that. It can only ripple out in other areas in a positive way.
Beautiful. I was just connecting a few dots as you said that. I love how you said that, writing is your skill. And so you needed to get away, out of your head and maybe in a sense away from the words. And I've been thinking a lot lately about what are the other languages that we speak. And I never thought about it this way, but in that sense, yoga is a language.
Sure, you can certainly make that argument. And it's all the communication. It's like, what if we treated everything as a communication? I think that's a really interesting thought experiment, because sex is another example. Like, what if we thought of sex as a way to communicate our needs, our desires, to listen to what the other person wants and what we're doing that is working or is not working? Everything can be a way to communicate. Yoga is no different. It's, communicating to ourselves, communicating to the people practicing next to you that you honor the container and the shared space, and that if you're really sweaty like me, you clean up after yourself, because it's really disgusting, and it's also a fall risk if you have a hardwood floor. All of this is part of communicating, and so to filter yoga through that lens, I think it's really interesting.
So cool. Going back, so you spent time in yoga, you spent time in therapy, you spent time doing these exercises, you spent time with the breath, which is just to me so beautiful. Yeah. How have you shifted?
Well, you should probably ask people who know me and not me, because I'm like the worst judge of it.
What would they say? So you don't. Yeah, we get your ego out of it. What would they tell you?
Exactly. What they would say is, more relaxed, knows how to stop and take a break, knows how to turn it off. Let's see, like knows when not to engage a certain skill. For example, there's the version of me that's always taking notes and always writing ideas down, which is important and a really crucial part of my process. But then it's like, all right, do I trust myself enough to not write something down while I'm listening to this person, knowing that I'll remember it later. I'll write it on the train home, but can I just be present for this person instead of cannibalizing their conversations to turn into my next amazing piece of content?
Cool. What would you say is your mechanism now for dealing with stress and anxiety when it comes up?
Well, it depends. It's another one of those toolkit answers where it's not one thing. But something that has been important is figuring out how to emotionally regulate with other people, because you just get caught in this loop if you're trying to do it with yourself. But if you are, sharing your feelings and emotions with your spouse, with your friends, with, support groups or whoever, it allows you to get some feedback to that, and to share things in real time and to get a sense of, oh, you feel that too. Okay. I'm so glad I'm not alone. I feel better about that. So I think that co-creation with other people and minds, connecting with other minds, has been really huge. And then there's all the other stuff that we've already talked about, from yoga to meditation, to journaling, to all that kind of stuff. It truly is a toolbox. And I think that's the key that I learned from my therapist very early on, is that, look, if you're really experiencing stress, like that car horn, you have to know that
send them love. We send them love. We send them love.
We sure do. We know that, if we're stressed out, our body took a while to get there. So it's going to take a while to unget there. So we need to be patient with it, and to have a variety of tools at our disposal that we can use at any time. So we can just oh, hey, look at this. Look who's stressed. Let me just go over to the toolbox. Yeah, I'm going to use this one and this one. Great. Pull that out. Take care of this. And it becomes actual relaxation, not forced calm. And I think that's a really big distinction. That's something that Eric Maisel taught me, was that it's one thing to be just legitimately relaxed and okay with yourself and okay with the world. It's another thing to be oh, I am relaxed. I am very calm. I'm aggressively calm.
I love it.
I feel like you have to pass through that aggressive calm, that forced calm first, and then you come through on the other side with actual calm and not a strategy.
So I want to talk about a favorite tool or two, but before I do that, importance of grounding for you, and what does that look like?
Yoga, we spend a lot of time on our feet and also on our back or on the ground itself. And it's beautiful because it's the physical sense of grounding. Which has become a bit of a buzzword now, that everyone is saying, how do you stay so grounded? Or I'm feeling so grounded. And sometimes you kind of get caught in the term itself, but on yoga, you're actually on the ground. or you're feeling the 3-point stance in your feet of like, underneath your big toe, your pinky toe, and then your back heel. That's grounded too, and the sort of triangulation of that. So I love that sense of yoga, of having a physical barometer of how grounded you are. And you can look in the mirror and see, oh, look at that. I'm going on to my left heel. You see that? Let's, toe down, get that 3-point stance, and then you stay grounded. That kind of stuff, I got to believe, has ripples out into the world from a metaphorical standpoint.
So, and I love how I'm a geek in the world of sports, whether it's on a bicycle, whether it's on blades, whatever it is, but looking at that exact form and that exact stance and how you're in alignment or not in alignment, there's an element of a huge element of presence to that.
Yeah, you have to be present with yourself, and it doesn't take much too. All you have to do is sit there. If I'm doing a standing bow, for example, in which my left hand is out and my right hand is back, my teacher will say, okay, don't do anything, don't move except kick your foot back to the wall. Like, okay. And then your right hip drops down. You don't drop your hip, you point your foot. And that's one of those little micro corrections that you can feel it, you can see it in the mirror, depending if you're facing the mirror and you're like, wow, all I did was take a breath, breathe into my foot, and push it back 2 inches, and the whole posture is transformed. And sometimes you fall out immediately because you went too far or you weren't ready for it, but that's okay, because falling out is a sign that, hey, I'm actually doing some cool stuff here.
Excellent. When you're done on the mat, from what I understand, from what I read, you do a brief mindfulness practice. What does that look like?
Well, the breathing meditation that I mentioned before, the 10 Zen seconds from Eric Maisel, I do that. If it's really disgusting and I'm really sweaty, I will mop up my lake of perspiration and apologize to the people next to me. And then if my wife and I are doing yoga together, I usually give her a foot massage. Oh. It's pretty great. Every once in a while, I'll get one too, but I usually do it for her, and it's nice.
Very cool. A nice bonding experience. I guess that leads us to, I'm still going to double around to anxiety, but since you're giving a nice foot massage, the importance of gratitude.
God, where do I start with that? Well, I mean, think about the fact that we're doing yoga in this really nice studio, and we have these like cushy mats and like these like great teachers who have been trained from around the world, and we paid $20 to do this, and we have water, clean water from a bottle, and we get to hang out with these people that are in our community, and wow, I mean, all of these things here, that wow, what a privilege, what a sense of gratitude this is. But even the floor, I'm grateful for the floor, because there's probably people in some country that I've never heard of or been to that probably do yoga, but it's on a gross floor that's like a dirt floor, or really, unfortunate sort of terrain. And like, wow, they don't have a nice, clean, hospital grades, smell free floor that some of these yoga studios have. It's like, just look around. You could spend the whole class just doing a gratitude list in your head, which I've done before. I wouldn't recommend it because you tend to like kind of lose your spot, but it is one other version of a meditation too.
Do you use that? Have you ever gone back to gratitude in the middle of the day?
Oh yeah. I mean, once I start beating myself up for a mistake that nobody notices, good time to go to gratitude. I mean, gratitude is one of the ways that we create meaning in the world, especially if we can share it with someone. I mean, making a list is great. Sometimes like sitting around making a gratitude list is like, this is stupid. You get so annoyed with like, what the hell am I doing? But sharing a gratitude list with someone else, now that's interesting, because that goes back to the co-creation. And my wife and I do this a lot. We'll kind of share gratitude lists back and forth, or we'll, write letters to each other. And I find that to be more meaningful than just like sitting around, like making a list of all these great things. Like sometimes you do that, you just feel so dumb. So to involve another person in it makes it a little more interesting.
Very, very cool. So we talked about tools earlier. What's a favorite tool or tool that you use for anxiety?
Barbecue, eating my feelings. No, just kidding. That's something I'm trying not to do. Well, here's the thing about anxiety for me, is that every single thing, when framed correctly, can help reduce anxiety. I mean, anxiety, it's not this one thing that we do once a day. Like there is always ambient anxiety in life because we're human beings. It's there. So me talking to you right now and us connecting, I mean, that's allowing me to create value in the world. And that's how one of the ways that I create meaning that reduces my anxiety. I had lunch that was really healthy. That makes me feel great about myself. I did yoga. I'm having dinner with a friend of mine tonight. I mean, everything in some way can be framed to help reduce anxiety. And I can understand that people would think, wow, that sounds like a lot of work. That sounds exhausting. Yeah. And that's another one of those those dips that you have to go through in the in the standard deviation or whatever of anxiety is when you begin on a quest, on a mission to fix ourselves. That's when we turn it into this sort of exhausting practice. And it takes a while in terms of anxiety management to get to a place where you don't get stressed out trying to become less stressed out. And it's really hard. I remember struggling that, and my therapist was like, I know, hurry up and relax. Jeez. I'm like, okay, smart ass, I get it. So it takes a while to get through that. So that's my answer to the question is there's nothing that isn't framed as meaningful and as a way to help find more joy and to reduce stress. That's what works for me.
Woohoo! What's the importance of forgiveness?
I forget. No, kidding. Forgiveness. Well, I guess it goes back to the kindness piece that we talked about earlier. So we start with this sense of kindness to ourselves and accepting our body and maybe even loving our bodies, staring at the mirror as we're sweating naked. And then once we kind of work on that, like, oh, wow, I think I'm ready to actually extend this to other people. And that's probably the smartest way that we can work on any of these big abstract things, kindness, forgiveness, acceptance, discipline, et cetera, et cetera. If we can do it for ourselves first, that's probably the best step. So for forgiveness, if I can forgive myself for sweating into the mouth of the woman next to me, if I can forgive myself for that, then maybe I can forgive somebody when he bumps my shoulder on the subway and I get thrown off balance. It's all about this integration of, can I forgive myself first? Then can I extend that out? Because I gotta believe that's the steps to do it. I gotta believe that if we don't do it for ourselves first, good luck trying to do it for somebody else.
Yeah, that's sort of well, in a sense, it's really a meta kindness practice beginning with yourself.
Sure.
So let's talk about, you had a posture clinic instructor who I think taught you, not deliberately, but a lesson about giving compliments.
He was really great. So this is a guy, his name is Ren. I forget his last name, but he came through my town years ago and gave us this posture. And he was really challenging me in class, but I did some things that I was kind of surprised by and impressed by. Like, wow, I really did that whole posture. And I told him, I said, hey, man, I just want to let you know how great this class was. And you really, really let me impress myself with my own abilities. And he was really touched by that. And we had this really nice connection in the locker room. And I was just really grateful that he was able to be there. And I think that's the type of compliments that people value the most is don't tell people how great they are. Of course, everybody loves hearing that. But tell them how great you feel now because of how great they are. That's the compliment that I think matters. Like, I'm always wondering that about people. Like, if you're so great, why don't I feel great around you?
Tell us about, if you can recall, if not, I've got the words. Dum spiro spero.
Oh, hell, just translate it. I don't remember.
Where there's breath, there's hope.
Yeah. So, this one takes me back to a lot of different situations, but the one was in Sydney, Australia. So I climbed the Sydney Harbour Bridge, which is what which is what American tourists do in Australia. So for all the Aussies listening and rolling their eyes, like, yeah, that's what you do. It's So we did this, and I wouldn't say I'm scared of heights, but it gets a little scary up there. We got the cars driving down and whatnot, and it's a scary kind of thing. And I had started yoga not too long before that, but I think that was one of the first moments that I really felt yoga translating off the mat, because I found myself shaking, getting nervous, getting scared, climbing this however many meter high bridge over the traffic, thinking like, I can do this. I can breathe through this. And I did. I just took a couple seconds to pause, and everything. And the tour guide didn't get mad at me for breathing, because that's
Wow,
like where
there's
your
an
mind.
actual tour guide for this. I was
Oh
wondering
yeah.
if like the police are coming, the lights are going to turn on.
Oh yeah. I probably should have mentioned it was a tour, not just a random act of criminal deviance. No, I was paid money to do this. So yeah, that's what we do. We think that, oh man, if I stop right now, if I take a breath, they're gonna leave me behind, and I'm gonna be all alone, and I'm gonna die by myself. Like we that's where our brain goes. It's like, no, just chill out and take a breath, and they'll wait for you, and they do, and you're better when you get there.
I had wanted to ask, and you may have already answered it. What has allowed you to step off the cliff in life and go for it?
I think that we don't need that many people to believe in us.
Mm-hmm.
So me stepping off the cliff, it's not because I don't believe, because like I'm good. I'm pretty solid with that, with like the trust and the faith thing in terms of my own stuff. Yeah, but sometimes you just need one person to be like, hey, you can do this. Go. I'm like, all right, cool. I got feedback. I'm not a huge fan of. So when I get like one person that I really trust, it's like, you can do this. Like, all right, cool. And just go. That to me is, I would say, what is most likely to launch me off the cliff.
Woohoo! If I took off my coaching hat and I put it on you, Scott, what one homework assignment would you give people today to begin changing their lives?
Homework assignment. Well, you're asking the wrong person, because I really like homework. So I give people just really like exhausting tasks to do. Yeah, you know what I would do? I'm not going to tell people to do yoga. I'm not going to tell people to go meditate. Mm-hmm. I would tell people to think back to one thing in your life that you actually enjoyed practicing. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was ballet, sports, singing, exercise, whatever, language, learning a new language. What is one thing you actually liked practicing, that you looked forward to practicing, that you didn't care if there was like a big game at the end of the week, or if you won, or if you were good, but like, yeah, what did you like practicing? Go there and like remember how it felt, and think about what was going on in your head and why you liked it. Like for me, it was music. That was the first thing that I really practiced. Not scales. Scales are stupid. I can't even read music. But like, I loved going in the basement of my dad's studio, getting the guitar, and just spending like 4 hours playing the same song. Not because I wanted to get it perfect, but I just loved doing it. I was like, I'm just going to play The House of the Rising Sun by the Animals from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. because it's such a great song, and I feel so cool when I play it. If you can transport yourself back to that kind of moment, I think there'll be some answers there. And if not answers, questions. And if not questions, information. And you'll walk away with something that will inform you going forward.
Woohoo! My wife, Jessica, she's the producer. She always wants me to ask, what advice would you give parents to help their kids today?
Oh, man, no one should ever ask me for parenting advice. Well, let me just say flat out that I reject the premise of that question. And instead, what I will do is I will share some things that my parents did for me.
Perfect.
That's what parents want, is advice from someone who doesn't have children. So I'm just going to flip it. I'm going to tell you what my parents did for me.
Awesome.
So I'll just give you a couple things. So the first thing they did is, my parents are yes people. My whole family are yes people. And,
meaning?
They encourage and affirm your ideas and your interests and your desires, as long as they're not hurting yourself or others. Let's be reasonable here. But yeah, they're going to say, awesome, great idea, go do it. Even if it's not a great idea, even if they're probably thinking to themselves like, honey, this our son's an idiot. Who cares? They say yes. They have a foundation of affirmation up front. And I think that's the key, because it gives people a sense of empowerment. kids in this example, a sense of empowerment, like, all right, cool, I'm going to do this. Because, yeah, we want our parents' approval. We want their permission, even if we say we don't. So, yeah, that was the first thing that I got, was saying yes. The second thing that I got was encouragement, which goes along with the first one, but it's like down the line, right? So, hey, I was at the basketball game, and I remember this when I used to play basketball. I don't know why, I'm horrible at basketball, but when I used to go to basketball, I wasn't good, and I had a courage, or not a courage. I had a tendency to beat myself up when I would miss a shot, as I mentioned before. That was like always my thing. Unfortunately, I would scream 4-letter words like out loud on the court. Not great. Doesn't reflect well on my parents. So
John McEnroe like.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Mac, so I learned well from him. So, my parents would encourage me, and they would say, like, it's okay to get upset. It's okay to, like, let it out. But, instead of saying, you might want to just be like, spin it, try to have it in more encouraging. All right, next time. Like, oh, I'm going to get the next one. I mean, like, let it out, but try to do it in a more encouraging way. And it's like a railroad switch. Okay, the 4-letter word is the rail car going down that way into the dark tunnel. Or you do that, whatever that's called, that little switch thing that they have in the railroad, and you go over here, you go towards Albuquerque, like Bugs Bunny, where it's nice and sunny, and you reframe it. To me, that's a sense of encouragement that they taught me that was instructive for me.
Awesome. What one more thing that they do? Because this is pretty cool.
That could be a whole other podcast. All right, I'll think of one more thing. What else do they do? I know we just had Thanksgiving. I could probably just pick something from the weekend.
Why have you been able to, we're bringing it right full circle back to the mom, dad, I'm graduating. I'm going to be wearing a name tag forever. And they say, cool. What have they gifted you with so that you just go for it? It is in your nature to do the opposite, not because it's the opposite, but because you can. You think you can.
They know when to just get out of the way. I mean, we all have problems with our parents. Oh, they're so overbearing and they ask so many questions, blah, blah, blah. Like, of course, like I'm sure that when you have kids, like you have to do that. That's like in the manual. I'm pretty sure that's page 1 in the manual. So of course that's going to be there, but yeah, it's like this trust or this faith, or it's like, you know what? This kid's 22 years old, or this kid's 18 years old, or this kid's 37 years old, whatever. They say, look, we've done the best we can. You're never not their parent, but like, we've kind of built the foundation. So let's trust in our own abilities of what we've built that is not going to go completely off the rails and, go commit mass murder and do horrible things. Like we trust that we did it. So yeah, they trust themselves and they get out of the way. And that somehow allows me to trust myself.
Woohoo! So where can people go to find your beautiful book and to find out more?
So A Year in Hot Yoga, 365 Daily Meditations for On and Off the Mat. This is the new book. It is available everywhere books are sold. And you can also learn more about my yoga community at Yoga Tribe Brooklyn. That is my local studio where my wife and I are work study volunteers and practice all the time, and all of our friends are there. It's really an amazing place. So if you're in Brooklyn or New York, come by. And then other stuff that I've done, of which there are many things, just Google the word name tag.
Fantastic. And if you didn't catch Googling the word name tag or yogatribebrooklyn.com, come on over to inspirenationshow.com and we'll help you Google name tag or get you over to yogatribebrooklyn.com.
Nice.
Thank you so much, Scott. Any last words of wisdom you want to share with people today?
Yes. Are you ready?
Yes.
Here's my final piece of advice.
Woohoo!
You see what I did there?
Yeah, you gave space. Thank you so much, my brother. for everyone out there. This is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get 365 daily meditations, and begin liberating up your life today and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you, Scott.
You're a great interviewer. Most podcast hosts are horrible, so thank you for being good.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!